people on or employees on flexible work arrangements are also workers. They are no different from any other worker, right? I mean, they are workers. Whether you work part time, you work flexi hours. Flexi hours doesn't mean have to be part time. It's full time, right? Yeah, or you work from home. It's still full time worker, no? Right? And you are employed. So as an employee, you know, you will be entitled to the basic employment protection rights under, say, Employment Act, if you come under that act, right? If you don't, you know, because you are managers and executive and you are beyond that, you still will be protected in terms of if you have disputes and so on, you know, you can actually go and, depending on what it is, you can go to MOM, right? If it's unfair dismissal and so on, you think it's discrimination, you go to TAFEP, you know, Fair Employment Practice, right? So it depends. Anyway, Employment Act, we are changing it. The amendments to the Employment Act will allow even managers and executives earning not more than $4,500 to be covered under the Employment Act for certain basic rights. For instance, like I say, end of employment issues, right? Whether it's victimization, dismissal, and things like this. Okay, so you are no different as long as you are employed. There shouldn't be a difference. Okay, but I thought I wanted to take this a bit further. This one talks about if you are a worker, whether you are protected by legislation, you know, flexible work arrangements. But commonly there are actually questions about whether you can legislate flexi work arrangements, which is actually in that video. I think NTUC, for instance, is proposing, you know, for the benefit of the workers, I suppose, right? That we legislate flexi work arrangements so that they don't feel, you know, that they don't feel that they are perceived differently or any less committed if they go and ask for flexi work arrangements, right? But of course, NEF, Singapore National Employers Federation, have reacted and say that, well, you know, if you legislate, you're going to cause a lot of friction. It is not just, and there will be business costs involved, of course, but the friction they are talking about is really not just about friction between employers and employee, but even among employees themselves. Because I suppose the assumption will be that if this person goes on flexi work arrangements, then how would the employee who is not going on flexi work arrangements, you know, have to respond, I suppose, you know, and maybe for them, maybe they think it's pick up the slack. But really, if you implement it properly and you redesign, like I say, work processes and so on, for some cases, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else will work a lot harder because you're on flexi work arrangements. But this may be a perception. Our response has been that legislation is not necessarily the solution to achieving work-life harmony and having more higher take-up as flexi work arrangements, as well as, of course, more companies offering flexi work arrangements. And there are many reasons, right? We have studied some countries who have implemented, you know, legislation, the right to request for flexi work arrangements, which is what we from in a way was talking about. Say in UK, in Australia, they have this legislation where the employee can go to the employer and say, I want to go on flexi work arrangements. The employer will have to consider, right? And if the employer doesn't want to give, the employer will have to give a reason why they don't want to give. But there are actually many reasons why the employer can. They don't have to give. It is not as if they must, but they will have to give a reason. Okay? And what we have seen is that there are actually many conditions for such legislation to have success, to be successful. For instance, in countries like UK, actually even before this legislation come out, already there's a high proportion of companies offering flexi work arrangements, right? That's one of the, I suppose, the condition. In Australia, after they implemented it, they didn't find more people taking up flexi work arrangements. So there could be many reasons. In Singapore, what we have found, for instance, is like based on survey. First of all, Association of Small and Medium Enterprise say a lot of our companies don't know how to put in place flexi work arrangements, especially the SMEs. And then the other thing is the HR don't know how to manage people on flexi work arrangements, how to assess them, and so on and so forth, right? The other issue is that surveys also show that, NTUC for instance, show that the employees themselves, the colleagues themselves may also not be supportive of flexi work arrangements. So there are many of these issues that we really have to look into in order to be able to promote flexi work arrangements. It's not just about flexi legislation, and in fact at this point in time we feel that this is something that we are not inclined to do at this point in time. Reason being, employers already under a lot of pressure to restructure, and so on and so forth, right? And this definitely is going to add to rigidities, add to friction. So we prefer to take the promotional approach. We work with the Employer Alliance, for instance. We work with the tripartite partners, SNAC and NTUC, to try and encourage companies to offer and employees to take up, and we try and create the right ecosystem, for instance, through incentives, right, through schemes to promote and allow the companies, make it easier for them to implement flexi work arrangements. So I think this is the other side. So I thought that instead of just talking about legislation to protect workers on flexi work arrangements, right?
I think I just want to add, because very often I'm asked the same question: do you think legislating, giving the employee the opportunity to ask? In fact, I think someone tried to force me into saying yes, it will help, and I had to say many times I don't think it's the right time. Really, because when a job is suitable for flexi work arrangement, it depends on the nature of the job, the operation, the team, and also the individual. Alright, for example, I know companies say, we must all practice 1 day a week you work from home. And then when this somebody who work from home, see the mother-in-law, how to work, everything like that. So why do you make this person suffer? And she will really get into trouble. She will not be able to produce on time. So not everyone is suitable, but so we need to look at the complexities of this issue. Yes, some are easy to implement, like say standard hour. Just allow everybody half an hour or 1 hour, then everybody can do that. But my concern is that when we say that everyone can ask, and if the person asks because you are allowed to ask, the boss is not ready. The boss may say, well, this is a fellow, how interested, or they both agree, they try out, but actually this person is not suitable. Because this person every half an hour need to talk to somebody. But you allow her to work from home, she feels miserable, and that's me. Alright? I have to talk to someone every half an hour. So now that a lot of time I work from home, I talk to Facebook. Okay, so I'm always on Facebook. So legislation may not necessarily open the door. We need to assess whether the operation, the team, the individual is ready.